purpose of this meeting is for a public hearing to consider proposed change in zoning. Has proper legal notice been given of the hearing?
Excuse me, Mayor, can we have a roll call first?
What?
Can we have a roll call first?
If you insist, yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Here.
Dr. Estrop,
Here.
Mr. O'Neill, Mr. Rue,
Here.
Mr. Copeland.
Here. Okay.
Notice of a public hearing for the purpose of considering the proposed change in zoning for 0.3 acre located at 1815 Columbus Avenue from RS5 Low Density Single Family Residence District to CC2 Community Commercial District was published in the Springfield News and Sun, a newspaper of general circulation within the city. Attached hereto is a true and correct copy of the legal notice published on July 21st, 2021.
I move that communication be ordered received, recorded in the minutes, and filed.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Staff report.
Hello, everyone. The applicant is requesting to rezone 1815 Columbus Avenue from RS5 Low Density Single Family Residence District to CC2 Community Commercial District. The parcel size is 0.3 acres. The surrounding land use and zoning to the north is a school transportation facility zoned M1. To the east is commercial use in RS5 zone. To the south is residential zone, zoned RS5. To the west is a school transportation facility zoned M1. The applicant seeks approval to rezone the subject parcel to a CC2 zone as the buyer plans to add a carry-out restaurant option to the existing structure. The Clark County Comprehensive Plan shows future character area as a suburban low intensity. The permitted uses in CC2 zone are compatible with surrounding land. The thoroughfare plan classifies Columbus Avenue as a secondary arterial street. The staff comments returned with no objections. The planning board approved the request unanimously. Staff received no objections from the public, and there were no objections presented at the planning board. Thank you.
Anybody on the commission have questions or comments?
Yes, so are you saying that there were no one that came to the planning board meeting, objected, and you received no complaints on this?
No.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anyone in the audience want to speak to this matter? Name and address for the record, please.
Tracy Shirk, 3105 Maplewood Avenue, Springfield, Ohio. I just want to say I'm the owner of the drive-through, and it was a childhood drive-through at a different location, then got moved here and was been shut down for 5 years. And we want to revamp it, bring it back to life for the neighborhood, and add a small hamburger, French fry milkshake to the business. And we've done a lot of work. It's totally different than that now, so thank you.
Anyone else want to speak to this matter? Is there a motion to adjourn the hearing?
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. The public hearing scheduled for 6:45 is called to order. The roll call from the previous hearing will cover this one also. The purpose of this meeting is for a public hearing to consider proposed change for a development plan. Has proper legal notice been given to the hearing?
Notice of a public hearing for the purpose of considering the proposed amendment to the existing CC2A District Development Plan located at 2202 North Bechtel Avenue was published in the Springfield News Sun, a newspaper of general circulation within the city. Attached hereto is a true and correct copy of the legal notice published on July 21st, 2021.
I move that the communication be ordered received, recorded in the minutes, and filed.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes?
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Staff report.
The applicant is requesting to amend the approved site plan for 2202 North Bechtel Avenue to allow for a new automobile-oriented use construction. The parcel size is 1.16 acres. The surrounding land use and zoning to the north is a commercial use zone CC2A. To the east is a commercial use zone CC2A. To the south is a commercial use zone CC2A. To the west is an undeveloped parcel in an RS5 zone. The applicant's original plans for the parcel were to develop a gas station, which was later modified. Now the applicant is seeking approval to amend the approved site plan for a tire shopping center. The development will have access to the Hobby Lobby lot to the north. The Clark County Comprehensive Plan shows future character area as a commercial center. The staff comments returned with no objections. The City Planning Board had approved the request to amend the site plan unanimously. Staff received no objections from the public and there were no objections presented at the Planning Board. However, the applicant would have to reapply for a conditional use permit at the September 20 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting since it received a tie-in vote. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from commissioners?
Yes. Did I read that incorrectly, that the city manager had objected to this?
Originally, the city manager's office had objected to it, but then when it was presented that the original proposed use was an automobile-oriented use as well, a gas station, we changed our objection to no objection.
And there were no objections at the planning board?
No.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience want to speak to this matter? Is there a motion to adjourn the hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes?
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. The hearing scheduled for 6:50 PM is called to order. The roll call from the previous ones will cover this one also. The purpose of this meeting is for public hearing to consider proposed change in zoning. Has proper legal notice been given to the hearing?
Notice of a public hearing for the purpose of considering the proposed change in zoning for 0.57 acre located at 25 West Harding Road from RS5 Low Density Single Family Residence District to PD Plan Development District was published in the Springfield News and Sun, a newspaper of general circulation within the city. Attached hereto is a true and correct copy of the legal notice published on July 21st, 2021.
I move that the communication be ordered received, recorded in the minutes, and filed.
Second. Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes?
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Staff report.
The applicant is requesting to rezone 25 West Harding Road from RS5 Low Density Single Family Residence District to a planned PD Development District. The parcel size is 0.57 acres. The surrounding land use and zoning on the south is residential, on the east it's residential RS5. On the north is residential RS5 and on the west is residential RS5. The applicant seeks the approval. The site was constructed as medical offices, but the buildings are no longer suitable for medical office use under the current Zoning classification, there is limited non-residential occupancy options. The owner is seeking a planned development district zoning to allow for flexible future uses, which are stipulated as commercial uses. Some of them are medical, accounting, school, for private instruction, art gallery, retail sales as an accessory to an office or professional service, communication studio, and residential dwelling. These will be the only permitted uses on this property. Seeking a PD zoning is the highest and best option for this property with the existing structures. The Clark County Comprehensive Plan shows future character area as suburban living high intensity. Permitted uses in the proposed PD zoning are similar to existing uses and will not change the character of the area. The thoroughfare plan classifies West Harding Road as secondary arterial street and Hawthorne Road as local street. The staff comments returned with no objections. The planning board approved the request unanimously. The staff received no objection from public, and there were no objections presented at the planning board meeting. Thank you.
Any questions from commissioners?
So the staff did not get any calls or anything regarding this. Is that
No,
correct?
no.
Thank you.
I believe there was confusion several weeks ago about this property and the zoning, but this is a low volume of traffic, the way this would be zoned. This, again, doctor's offices, lawyers, just a small group of cars. There was concern it was going to be a gas station there. I think there was confusion that it was the Durr Road property that we had talked about with that type of use. So that's the kind of what I saw online and people's concerns, but
And for clarification, we
yeah.
did receive calls, but once we were able to clarify that,
Yeah.
that this was Harding Road and not Home Road
Right.
rezoning, we had no objections.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone in the audience want to speak to this matter? Is there a motion to adjourn the hearing?
So moved.
second,
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue?
yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes?
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. The hearing scheduled for 6:55 is called to order. The purpose of this meeting is for a public hearing to consider the dual naming of a street. The president, has there been public notice of this?
Notice of a public hearing for the purpose of considering the renaming of a portion of West McCrite Avenue from North Fountain to St. Paris Road to the dual naming of West McCrite Avenue, Herman Carr Way, was published in the Springfield News and Sun, a newspaper of general circulation within the city. Attached hereto are true and correct copies of the legal notices published on July 21st and 28th, 2021.
I move that the communication be ordered received, recorded in the minutes, and filed.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes?
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Staff report.
The applicant is requesting to dual name West McCrate Avenue from North Fountain Avenue to St. Paris First Street to Herman Carr Way. The length of the road for dual name is approximately 0.7 miles. West McCrate Avenue is classified as a primary arterial street. The applicant states Officer Herman Carr marched in the Memorial Day Parade to lead school safety patrol students and adult patrol members. He performed magic as Herman the Magician in Springfield and surrounding schools. He retired from the Springfield Police Department in 1988 after 27 years of service. This section of McCrae Avenue was chosen since it was the original parade route, and the Officer Carr's final resting place is in Ferncliff Cemetery. The staff comments returned with denial from Service Department. They stated that this creates an unnecessary current and future expenses and labor or the Traffic Control Division who are working to maintain the existing infrastructure and remain in compliance with ever-changing federal regulations. The city manager's office returned reports with denial, stating high cost of materials. The building inspections, fire division, police division, and planning and zoning had no objections. The planning board approved the request unanimously. The staff received no objections from the public and there were no objections presented at the planning board meeting. Thank you.
Questions from commissioners?
Yeah, so to my understanding, this was presented in one way, and then it was returned with a new presentation that was more received by the staff. Is that right, Brian, or anyone?
Yes, I believe it was accurate. The
Okay.
original name that came, that was presented in the application, staff worked with, the applicant to
Right.
alter that or change that, how it would proceed with dual.
Additionally, the original application was for a street renaming.
Right.
Mhm.
And through the process, it was amended to be a dual renaming as Brian speaks. So the overall staff report is for approval for this dual renaming.
Excellent. Because I think that Herman Carr is definitely worthy of this honor, posthumously, of course. I, for one, was in his Safety City class as a little guy, and I believe that he may have performed magic at one of my birthday parties, but I was small. But he, through his teaching and development of this program through when he was alive and just has saved thousands of lives, there's no doubt in my mind, just teaching kids safety. So I think I'm excited to see this and definitely will be supporting it.
So are we straight then that the staff is not objecting to the dual renaming of the street?
No, the staff is not.
Yeah, that is correct. The city manager's office, has looked at it and the change, again, working with the applicant to change, the dual renaming. I will say that we probably in the future will be looking at just the renaming process that's under our codified ordinances to look at changes and maybe mirror what some other cities are doing to make it, one, more cost effective, but more straightforward for those that would apply for it, in the future.
Not be the only city, would it?
No, that we have several that are dual. Right out here in front is North Fountain Boulevard, but also Purple Heart Way, Johnny Lytle and State Street. Those are Center Street. Those are some examples.
So this question is for the staff. I don't know who wants to answer it, but who is paying for all of this?
So 50% would be the applicant's share of the total, and 50% would be the city's share.
Thank you.
Again, the way I look at this is usually people that are being presented to for this type of honor have devoted their life to something and have probably spent countless of hundreds and thousands of dollars of their own time and money to do something wonderful for the community. So I don't think the expense is great currently. I understand looking at it again, but I don't, and I believe the applicants didn't even want this to be a factor if the push came to shove, so.
Anything else from commissioners? Okay, I have two cards, people who want to speak. Anybody else can speak also. Clark R. Please go to the microphone.
Mayor, Assistant Mayor, City Commissioners, thank you for this opportunity. Some of you knew him as Officer Carr. Some of you knew him as Herman the Magician. But most of us knew him as simply Herman. And yes, that is correct. Herman served on the police department for 27 years, and 20 years of his life was dedicated to the Safety City program that he began in 1969. All those summers, almost 1,000 children per summer attended Safety City. So he touched the lives not only of 20,000 children, but 20,000 families. But the key is, my father knew when to follow them through elementary school, junior high, and high school. He was involved in the school patrol. He was involved with sanctioning the school patrol. He was involved in the drug program. And of course, he'd always work in a little bit of magic, be it at Safety City, be it in the schools, because that was the love of his life, seeing the smiles on the kids' faces that he connected with. He was truly an ambassador for the city of Springfield. He received the Policeman of the Year award in 1977. He was involved in that. He took many days of his own personal lunchtime, and he would have lunch at visiting schools. He would alternate. When Safety City started, it was just in the north end at Simon Kenton, and it was at Perrin Woods. But my father said, we're missing opportunities on the east and west side of Springfield. He personally wanted to expand it to Horseman and Elmwood School, and also Bushnell on the east side of town, the west side of town. He was very excited for what he did, and the magic lit up the kids' eyes. And a great example of this, at a restaurant when we're eating, you could see the kids come in and say to their mother, they would always address it to their mother as, there's Officer Carr. But when they came over to the table, how did they address him? It's always Herman. And he insisted on that from the very beginning. He insisted on it because he wanted to build the bridge between the police department and the families of the community. And to help keep their attention, that magic went a long way with many, many smiles. And yes, you've already heard it. He would tell us, oh, he dreaded marching in this parade every year, but he would never shine his belt, his holster, his shoes as well as he did the night before this parade. And when he went down the street, he smiled. And yes, it was from Fountain Boulevard to where the safety patrol disassembled right outside Ferncliff Cemetery. And yes, that was the journey, his final journey to his final resting place currently here in Springfield. Commissioners, we ask for your yes vote on this so he can look out on the street and say, yes, this is Herman Carr Way. Thank you for your time.
Hey, I also have a card from Carol Dunlap.
Good evening, Mayor Copeland and City Commissioners. My name is Carol Dunlap, and I'm here tonight to speak in favor of the dual naming of the portion of McCrite to be titled Herman Carr Way. As you've already heard from Clark, Herman made a lasting impact on the citizens of Clark County. In his role as police officer beginning in 1961, he was assigned 2 years as uniform patrol, moved 3 years into traffic before being assigned to Community Relations Division. I believe in this role was where Herman found his niche. As we all know, building relationships with the community is powerful. Herman's natural ability to communicate with people made him an ideal candidate for this new role. When Officer Carr founded the original Safety City back in 1969, he knew there was a need to teach children. And as Clark said, over 20 years and thousands of people every year of our 5- and 6-year-old citizens of Springfield, he had an impact. The memories that have been shared with me from the graduates has been kind of tremendous. Some commenting that it was the high point of the summer, and others even sharing diplomas that they've kept from their year of graduation. He created a perfect environment for kids to feel safe. And many of those people now raising their own kids are wishing we had that program again for the kids. Memories of Herman's don't stop there. He taught the safety patrol students in every elementary building how to keep others safe as they cross the street. And again, as Clark said, the activity of marching in the Memorial Day Parade, I can remember seeing Officer Carr going along, waving, smiling ear to ear, and just really that was, and it's always around his birthday, so it was extra special, I think, for him. But also, countless of us have fond memories of Herman the Magician as he came into our elementary schools. We'd sit spellbound on the gym floor watching his performance, wondering how he did that, and then always waiting to see who would win the rabbit during the show. As an adult, I've been lucky enough to have known Herman and his family on a personal level. My husband's family were friends and neighbors of the Carr family. And I can tell you, Herman's love, dedication, and service to Springfield was genuine. Anytime Officer Carr talked about Springfield, he'd have the biggest smile and as he spoke, and his voice was filled with pride. His words came from the heart. Herman's life work was dedicated to the people of Springfield. He influenced a generation. Let's keep his memory going for future generations by showing them the Herman Carr way. Thanks.
Is there anyone else who wants to speak to this matter? Is there a motion to adjourn the hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes?
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Okay, so now we can have the city commission meeting. Okay? So, I call the city commission meeting to order. Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton?
Here.
Dr. Estra?
Here?
Mr. O'Neill? Mr. Rue?
Here.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Please rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Our God, we're very honored to act on behalf of the people of Springfield this evening. Help us to do it well and serve the people well. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Anybody want to move to approve minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes?
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Clerk will proceed with first readings by title only.
Mayor Copeland,
Yes.
per the applicant's request, I move to table the first reading of item number 19421 pertaining to the proposed amendment to CC2A District Development Plan for 2202 North Beckel Avenue until September 28th City Commission meeting.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments?
Yes. Is there a reason attached to that?
The applicants requested that we move, and I think we would just oblige by that, and they must have good reason for us to postpone it.
Okay.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes?
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Clerk will proceed.
Excuse me. Amending the zoning map of Springfield, Ohio by rezoning 0.3 acre at 1815 Columbus Avenue, Springfield, Ohio, from RS5 Low Density Single Family Residence District to CC2 Community Commercial District. Amending the zoning map of Springfield, Ohio by rezoning 0.57 acre at 25 West Harding Road, Springfield, Ohio, from RS5 Low Density Single Family Residence District to PD Planned Development District. Renaming a portion of West McBride Avenue from North Fountain Boulevard to St. Paris Road to the dual naming of West McBride Avenue, Herman Carr Way. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Rumpke of Ohio Incorporated for the city's 2021 collection of fall bag leaves program for an amount not to exceed $61,500. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Rumpke of Ohio Incorporated for trash pickup at various city facilities for a period of 3 years with an option to renew for 2 additional one-year periods for an amount not to exceed $30,000. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Waste Management of Ohio Incorporated for trash pickup at various city facilities for a period of 3 years with an option to renew 2 additional one-year periods for an amount not to exceed $60,000. Reorganizing the police division to the extent of establishing 1 sergeant position in the police division of the Department of Public Safety. authorizing the city manager to submit an application for financial assistance and accept a grant from the state of Ohio, Ohio Public Works Commission, to obtain funding in an amount up to $594,760 for the Yellow Spring Street reconstruction, Phase 1, PID number 109491, and authorizing the city manager, law director, finance director, and city engineer to do all things they consider necessary for the submission of the application for financial assistance and the acceptance of the grant, authorizing the city manager to enter into a plat agreement, Kingsgate Commons, Section 13A, between the city and Kingsgate Commons, authorizing the city manager, law director, and finance director to do all things necessary to implement the said plat agreement, Kingsgate Commons, Section 13A.
Any questions or comments from commissioners on first reading?
Yes. In regards to item 223-21, a couple of meetings ago, we had representatives from the People for Safe Water speak to us. And unfortunately, what they had to report to us was that in 3 years, since the U.S. EPA forced a settlement on us, the people of Springfield and Clark County, there is no settlement to date. The Tremont barrel fill continues to sit there untreated as a threat to the water supply of this city, this county, and a good share of Southwest Ohio. I find it, and I said at the time I was angry, my anger has not declined, that the federal government, particularly the Justice Department, has sat on their hands and done nothing while this threat continues to our water supply. Now, you would think, given what's happening out west in the nation, with the extended drought and the need for water, that they would understand, even in Washington, D.C., how precious water is, particularly good, clean water, not tainted by chemicals, toxic chemicals. But we can't seem to get that message through. No one seems to be willing to listen to us in the Justice Department. It's government serving government, not government serving the people. And that needs to be changed. The other thing that troubles me, particularly about this item, is one of the big corporations involved in the ownership of that barrel fill is Waste Management. Now, this is a company that is seeking to do business with us while leaving this threat to our very existence with a toxic chemical barrel fill near our water source, that aquifer. So I really would like to ask our law director if she could do some research to see, in fact, if there's anything the city can do relative to this contract as a result of the inaction on the part of Waste Management at the Tremont barrel fill. I think it's time we stood up and made ourselves heard, not only in Washington, where the Justice Department does nothing, but also with Waste Management, because I tell you what, Waste Management could tomorrow say, settle this, and it would be settled. I'll bet my bottom dollar on it. Thank you.
I don't quite agree with that. I look at this as this is something that the EPA needs to work out with Waste Management. In the meantime, I'm going to ask, do we have any dates for leaf collection for 2021?
Yes, Commissioner, we do. I'll ask Chris Moore to provide those.
Thank you.
Commissioners, bag leaf pickup this year will be on November 6th and December 4th. Those are both Saturdays. And as the leaves start to fall, we will make sure we publicize that various places to let everyone know.
So they have to be out by what time that morning? By like,
They need to be out by 6 a.m. on those Saturday mornings.
okay, so that's the 6th of November and the 4th of December?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Anything else from commissioners on first readings? Anyone in the audience want to speak to a first reading? Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Larry Ricketts. My address is 1736 North Fountain Boulevard in Springfield. Thank you, Commissioners, for giving me the opportunity to address this issue. This is in regards to what Dr. Estrip was talking about and the proposed contract with Waste Management. I was a part of the work session that went on 4 weeks ago. I made it very clear at that time that if you look at the history, the 30-year history of this barrel fill, the only time that this thing has been held up is when Waste Management has held it up. They have a long history of doing this, starting back in the mid-1980s, when they ended up having to go to court, and a lawsuit was settled that they were, in fact, responsible for 55% of the cleanup at the barrel fill. And then for years, they've sandbagged this. And I actually had a call with US EPA the day before yesterday, over the weekend, and they have seen the videotape of our work session from 4 weeks ago, and it really caught their attention. But even though it was brought up several times at that meeting that we thought that Waste Management was the culprit in slowing this down, EPA doesn't deny that. I asked them again, I said, is Waste Management responsible for slowing this down? And they won't comment on that. So to enter into another contract with Waste Management right now that has at least a 3-year period, I think is ill-advised for the city. I understand the bidding process and that you need to go with the lowest bid to save money. But after the first of the year, things are really going to get interesting on this. I mean, there are going to be some things that happen involving Waste Management locally, possibly involving litigation. And I think that the city should take a long, hard look at doing business with a company that we've asked time and again to move this thing forward, and they refuse to do it. And Dr. Estrip, I thank you for your comments on that. And Commissioner Chilton, I understand your position also, that you think this is between the EPA and Waste Management. But I think we've put up with this for over 30 years, and I think it's time for us to do something locally, and this is a good first step to send them a message that if you want to do business in this county and with this city, you need to address this problem. Thank you.
I'm just going to jump in and support, because Dave and Larry have done spent a lot more time on this. I've been in a few meetings. This is very important. If this verbal objection to doing business in the future, if with Waste Management is just something that we can have, that this is something we need to definitely look at. I don't know if legally we can do anything about the contract, but at the same time, if Waste Management is indeed holding this whole thing up, they're jeopardizing the safety of our water system, obviously. And if this little thing can get to have a bigger voice, then it needs to. But I do support effort to help Waste Management wake up to this, for sure.
I have another question. What I understood, Waste Management has the trucks that can go down like in the garage in different buildings.
Actually, that's the opposite. So Rumpke provides the services that can go within City Hall and the Police Division
Okay.
and provide those services. Waste Management's truck.
Thank you for straightening that out.
Anything else from any other commissioners? Anyone in the audience else want to speak to this? Any other questions or comments on first readings?
Yes, I do have one other question. The Yellow Spring Street, and I believe it is 225-21. What street, what area? I know it says South Yellow Spring Street, but what area and, when do we expect for anything to start on that, I guess? I know
Okay.
we're just submitting the application now.
Yeah, Commissioner, phase one is from, Main to Pleasant. So Main Street to Pleasant. And this is a grant from the Ohio Public Works Commission that will be matched with, federal dollars that we've already received for the project. And currently, we expect it to begin in calendar year 2023.
Anything else on first readings? Okay, those will be scheduled for vote at our next meeting. The clerk proceed with second readings.
Vacating the first alley north of Selma Road from Cypress Street southeast to the first intersecting alley being approximately 150 feet.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Yes, I think I had asked for if there was, any police reports on this, because the applicant had indicated that there was a lot of, illegal things going on in this area.
Yes, Commissioner. So I did, after the last meeting, ask Captain Brad Mose to pull a report. Previously, I had looked specifically at the alley and the surrounding addresses, and there was nothing specific to that. But then the applicant stated up at Buckeye Street that there was more concern. So I did have him expand the search and look at Buckeye Street over the last 12 months. And there are several cases where the police have been called there. A lot of them are domestic violence related in nature. So we did look at that. Nothing overwhelming or alarming specifically from the calls for service, but there are several that have been made to the area of Buckeye Street.
I'm looking at Buckeye Street, it's kind of like over, okay, thank you.
Just to refresh my mind, there was an objection to this, wasn't there, or a complaint from one of the residents?
Yes,
One of
that
the
is
property
correct.
owners?
Okay, so the way the city commission works is if somebody wants to comment on this, that's the next thing that will be allowed, but there's a 3-minute limit on how long you talk. Anyone in the audience want to speak to this matter?
Gary Durst, 2800 South Limestone Street. I own the property across the alley that faces Selma Road. And if the alley's, if it's vacated and a barrier or a fence is put down the center of the alley, it'll deny access to the rear of my property. I own the house and the empty lot right beside it. And that space can be used for parking if needed, as you're just going around a curve on Selma Road, so on-street parking is a little difficult. But the other part is the only entrance we have to our maintenance, our furnace, water heater, all that, is from the rear. So if we had to get in with any equipment, it would hinder that. As far as I guess I'm looking at alternative. I want to be a good neighbor, but I don't know if it could happen. But there's a possibility in my mind that we could go to the rear of the applicant's property and go across and close the alley if indeed the through traffic, the way I understand, is what the concern is for crime. We just go straight across there. There is a utility pole that's just right across the alley that runs, the fence or whatever barrier would be put there would run north and south. Close it off there. Then that still allows access to the back of my property plus the other property that's there, access to that, and then stops any through traffic coming the other way. There's a couple around the city like that. In fact, there's one, I have another property on the west side of town. It's it's on Eden between West Jefferson and Mulberry, and it has been closed like two parcels in, and there's still access to it, to that, but we come off of another street, much like this would be. It's not asking a precedent that way, but to me that would be an alternative if that indeed is the difficulty.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak to this matter?
It's Renee Hayes, 912 Cypress. I would be okay with that. That is the problem through traffic, the things that go on Buckeye Street, and then they run down to, also the through traffic. I believe it's drug activity. They're coming through the alley, going to the other end and going on out. And it's pretty bad. So, again, I would be okay. That was kind of my request from the get-go, just as something to stop the through traffic there. So,
I'd like to move to postpone this so you two can talk and talk with city staff. If you're that close to an agreement, it would seem to me, but that's not what we're considering tonight.
I don't know if a postponement's necessary. I'm not going to vote yes for it as is, so I'm going to vote no. But I think there is something that's going to be worked out. I don't like to see crime on that street. I think there is an alternative. Gary has presented the alternative. But to block that street off when it is, when he needs access to some of his properties, maybe emergency vehicles would need access down that road. We have not voted in favor of doing that in the past. So I will not support this as is, but I think you guys are going to be able to work something out. So I don't think we need to postpone it,
Wait a minute,
in my opinion.
but if you vote no, then it kills it. I would vote to postpone it.
Okay. I'll move to postpone this, item 197-21, pending reapplication by the applicant and a meeting between the applicant and the complainant.
I would second that motion.
And could we ask staff to facilitate that?
By all means.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Before the end of the week, we will work with the applicant and the neighbor to see if we can get something documented that is satisfactory to both.
Okay.
Thank you.
It won't be a legal document, but it'll be an agreement.
Thank you. I'm going to second that.
Okay. There's a motion to postpone. Any further discussion? Clerk, call the roll. Go ahead.
Mayor Copeland, we actually have a motion on the table for approval.
Oh.
And then we have the second, so which one should I call? The first motion to approve, okay?
I
That'll
don't think
be,
there's a second to the motion to approve.
yes, sir, yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Rue made the motion and Dr. Astrop seconded.
I'll withdraw my second on the motion to approve. That'll take us right to the amended motion, which is to postpone, or to the motion to postpone.
So I guess I'm just going to go ahead and let myself be taught publicly. I don't understand why we need to table it. If it dies, they work it out. We don't need to be involved. The alley stays open. There's no city intervention necessary anyway, I think. Somebody tell me something different.
Yeah.
No, we would not be if this is voted as a no. Am I right? Am I reading that right?
That is correct.
So if it goes off, if it's killed, then it's done and you all work something out and we don't need to block the alley, which I think is the only thing on the table. Am I right?
Yeah, for
Okay,
me.
so I don't.
But no, that's not what I was hearing.
Okay.
He wants to block part of the alley.
No.
Yeah, so that's what I'm hearing too.
And
Then
staff
maybe I
is
didn't
prepared to
follow Gary's.
facilitate that
Right.
discussion,
Okay,
to
I
come
didn't
to a
follow what he
compromise
was
for
saying then.
for vacation.
Right.
Just so make sure we do what we haven't
Yeah.
done in the past.
Right, he wants part of it blocked.
Yeah, I thought I heard both parties saying the same thing, which is block part of it, but not all
All
that
of
you're
it. Okay.
proposing.
Thank you for clarifying. I didn't follow that block part of it.
Right.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor
Second it.
to postpone, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Clerk will call the roll.
the date that you want to postpone this until,
To the 28th.
the 28th of September?
Yeah, that'd be fine. That should give you sufficient time. The 28th of September for the staff, looking at Shannon, yes, and both parties,
Yes. 4 weeks.
looking at both both parties, was that sufficient time for you to get this done? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes,
Dr. Estra?
Yes,
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
thank you.
Vacating the first alley east of Eden Avenue from Mulberry Street north to the first intersecting east-west alley.
Move to adopt.
second,
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? Anyone in the audience want to speak to this matter? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
yes,
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes,
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a purchase agreement for real estate for the purchase of certain real property located at 811 Birch Street from Roundtree Home Solutions LLC for an amount not to exceed $300,000, and authorizing the city manager, law director, and director of finance to perform all acts and execute all documents they consider necessary to fulfill the city's obligations under said purchase agreement and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements.
so moved.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Yes, am I right, Mr. Heck, that this is some of that federal money that we're using, or is this city fund?
We are analyzing the use of ARP funds, American Rescue Plan dollars, as it relates to these purposes.
Are there other, I mean, is 21421 in the same boat as 21321 in terms of looking at using ARP dollars?
Yes.
Okay. I would appreciate it if you could indicate just verbally tonight if there are other items that are using the federal dollars, so we can sort of track that until you guys have your spreadsheet ready. That'd be great.
Yep.
I would appreciate it. Thank you. The ARC dollars is the, Brian, if you would explain that for the public.
Yeah, the American Rescue Plan was adopted earlier this year by the legislature, the federal legislature, and signed by the president. And it provided direct allocation or direct funding to states and municipalities to perform projects and pass, help communities recover and sustain from COVID-19. The U.S. Treasury was placed with the responsibility of developing the rules and regulations as it relates to the use of those dollars. Interim guidance was submitted back in May by the U.S. Treasury out to these localities. There was a public comment period that ended July 16th, and we await final determination or final rules as it relates to the use of these dollars.
Anyone else from the commission? Anyone in the audience want to speak to this matter? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes,
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes,
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a purchase agreement for real estate for the purchase of certain real property located at 2040 South Limestone Street from Nielsen Property Limited for an amount not to exceed $314,500, and authorizing the city manager, law director, and director of finance to perform all acts and execute all documents they consider necessary to fulfill the city's obligations under said purchase agreement and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements.
Move to adopt.
second.
Been moved and seconded. My wife and I would be very happy to see that lot used for some good purpose.
absolutely.
Anybody else want to speak to this matter?
Can our city manager talk about what we're looking at doing with the lot once we purchase?
Yes, so both of these 213-21 and 214-21 are being looked at for construction of new fire stations. So specifically as presented at the City Commission retreat and then adopted in the goals and objectives of the City Commission, we need to address our aging fire stations. Average age is 56 years old, with the newest one being built in 1981. And so we have a lot of work to do in addressing those stations as it relates to not only the housing of our equipment and apparatus, but also for the continued diversification of our workforce. And so specifically at the Wendy's lot, we're looking at the construction of a fire station, a new fire station. We actually met today with Clark State about a potential partnership with them as well. As you know, we utilize the Clark State Fire Academy for our individuals working to become firefighters and paramedics. And so there's a potential partnership with Clark State as well at this site. And so we're excited to take the next step forward, assuming approval of this purchase.
Thank you.
I also recall, I think, Chief Miller, that you commented that we needed to look at the location of our firehouses. And as I understand it, these two locations will serve us better as a community as Springfield begins to grow and expand. These two locations provide better coverage for the city. Would you care to comment on that, please?
Thank you, Commissioner. We have done a very thorough job of analyzing our fire stations with two different consultants. One talking about the condition of our fire stations and the dire need to improve them. And then the second of all, the station location study that we hired a consultant, Ohio Fire Chiefs came in. And these two locations are either exactly or within 2 blocks of the locations that those consultants made known to us. So we've done all sorts of due diligence on this, and we feel like we have a really great command of where we're headed with this. And we were super fortunate that the ARPA dollars got funneled into our city. So we're looking to take advantage of that. Feels like we won the lottery.
Great. Thank you, Chief.
Anyone else?
Just think this also goes along with our desire to want to improve the corridor coming in off 70, and this will be a nice, brand-new looking state-of-the-art facility. And I'm really pleased that Clark State is going to work with us in that area, and would encourage possibly the idea of some sort of police substation or something there on the south end, the fire station. Just a personal thought that would be really neat if we could do all that, so.
We actually have a substation on the south side.
Right, but I'm just talking about right in there in that new
Yeah.
location. But anyway, that's just a thought of
Yeah.
mine.
Anybody else? Anybody in our audience want to speak to this? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Accepting the application for annexation of certain territory containing 72.68 acres, more or less, in Springfield Township and commonly known as the South Burnett Road, East Level Lane annexation area to the city of Springfield, Ohio.
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a development incentive agreement, single-family residential development, with William L. Wilcox Jr. to provide for sewer services to real property outside the city limit.
Who to that?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Declaring the improvement of certain parcels to be a public purpose and exempt from taxation pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 5709.40B, providing for the collection and deposit of service payment and specifying the purposes for which those service payments may be expended, and authorizing school compensation payments.
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Yes. Could somebody explain this one to me?
Joe, do you want to speak to that, or would you like?
You can go ahead if you're comfortable with it.
Okay, yes, so this is working with the existing development that's out on the east side of town, the Bridgewater Housing Subdivision. And we're working, and there's future legislation too as it relates to phases 3 and 4. But this helped change or provide for the assessment of, as we look to, you know what,
This one is
we're 219, this is Redwood
Redwood.
Apartments, sorry.
correct, yep.
Scratch that. I was ahead of myself. This is for the Redwood tax increment financing project. The Redwood Apartments is a proposed 94-unit apartment project up on the northeast part of our community near the Kingsgate subdivision. And this would provide a tax increment financing district in place of that development to help with public infrastructure costs related to that development.
Okay, so this would be like a TIF, right?
Yes,
Okay,
which you'll hear more about here soon.
thank you.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs.
Oh,
Chilton?
public.
Well, that's what I meant by anyone else.
Oh,
Anybody in the audience want to speak to this matter?
sorry.
Okay, clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Declaring it necessary to improve public streets and easements by constructing and installing on certain property within the city's street improvements, water and sewer lines, storm drains, and all necessary appurtenances, and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
And moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Providing for supplemental appropriations within various funds and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Confirming and approving an employment incentive agreement with Esterline and Sons Manufacturing to incentivize expansion of their current Springfield operation through the purchase of lot number 18 at Air Park, Ohio, and the construction of a new manufacturing and operations facility to create employment in the city, authorizing the city manager, finance director, and law director to do all things necessary to implement the said employment incentive agreement and declaring it an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Was wondering if we could learn a little more specifically about this from the staff.
Yes, Commissioners, I'll have Tom Franzen talk specifically on this project.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is related to lot number 18 at Air Park, Ohio, a lot to approve the sale of in a previous commission meeting for Esterline and Sons expansion. So this is an expansion of an existing company here in the community in Clark County that have outgrown their existing site. So we've been working with them for a number of years on this, so we're extremely happy to see this move forward. But the employment incentive agreement is a 4-year, 50% employment incentive grant based off the new income tax that's generated as a result of the project. These 55 new jobs that would be moved into the JED Economic Development District. There's a 1% income tax there out at the airport. And so we would be sharing a grant based off that new revenue coming into the district. So the project results in about a 45,000 square foot building. So it's grown a little bit since we initially drafted our ordinance here tonight, but the project has gotten bigger in that regard. Mr. Maurer, too, cannot be here tonight. He's had a death in the family. He did plan to be here, but Esterline and Sons is a great manufacturer here in town in the aerospace and food industry. It's a great project.
Thank you, and I'm delighted to see the airport and the air park continue to develop and serve as an economic tool for the city of Springfield. So please keep up the great work out there.
Anyone else? Call the roll.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to execute a military construction cooperative agreement with the United States of America National Guard Bureau for the construction of a front gate sign at Springfield Beckley Municipal Airport and declaring an emergency therein.
Adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Determining to proceed with the improvement of public streets and easements by constructing and installing on certain property within the city street improvements, water and sewer lines, storm drains, and all necessary appurtenances, and declaring an emergency therein.
Move
So
to
moved.
adopt. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Levying special assessments for the improvement of public streets and easements by constructing and installing on certain property within the city street improvement, water and sewer lines, storm drains, and all necessary appurtenances, and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
I was just curious if Mr. Moore could tell us how we're doing in terms of street paving this year. I assume the weather has worked to our advantage, but thought I might check in.
Yes, Commissioner, so this is our biggest paving program in many, many years. It is moving along very well. The weather is cooperating. The biggest delay we're having is the contractors having adequate staffing here to get things done. They've done a great job of working together, even though they're competing contractors. And right now, if the weather holds, we're on pace to get everything covered up this year.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Rue?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the purchase of one 2022 Ford Super Duty F-550 from National Auto Fleet Group for an amount not to exceed $64,574.32 through Sourcewell pursuant to the Sourcewell Contract Purchasing Cooperative Program in accordance with the provisions of Section 9.48 of the Ohio Revised Code and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Yes. Could we have purchased an international truck made here in Springfield to fill this need?
No, this is one of those cases where the vehicle falls in between a pickup truck and the snowplow-sized dump truck. International does not make something that fits that need.
Good, thank you.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Confirming and approving amendment number 7 to the agreement for professional engineering consulting services between the city and Strand Associates Incorporated in connection with the combined sewer overflow long-term control plan to increase the contract in amount not to exceed $192,300 for a new total amount not to exceed $1,361,200 to modify the hourly billing rate and extend the contract completion date June 30th, 2023, and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Confirming and approving change order number 11 to the contract between the city and Moody's of Dayton Incorporated for the well pump cleaning and rehabilitation project to increase the contract in an amount not to exceed $6,137 for a total amount not to exceed $1,313,931, authorizing the city manager to execute change order number 11 and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Confirming and approving change order number 1 to the contract between the city and Granite Inliner LLC for the 2020 Miscellaneous Sewer Lining Project to increase the contract in an amount not to exceed $311,100.82 for a total amount not to exceed $758,837.32, and to extend the project completion date to August 18th, 2021, authorizing the city manager to execute said change order number 1 and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
I was wondering if Mr. Moore could explain how this saves us some time, energy, and money again. You've demonstrated it several times to us, and Chris, I was wondering if you could once again explain what we're doing here and how it benefits the city and the residents.
So this project is it's a project we do annually where we look for sewers that are leaking and letting in clean water and are, in some cases, ready to collapse. And rather than dig up the street and cause traffic disruptions or disruptions to people's yards in many cases, we're able to put a very soft liner through the sewer, heat that liner up with hot water to a few hours until it gets firm and it gets strong enough it's a standalone pipe when it's done. So we can repair the entire sewer without digging up the roadway.
Very good, thank you.
Anyone else? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes?
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Confirming and approving change order number 1 to the contract between the city and LJ DeWeese Company Incorporated for the sidewalk project, PID number 109478, to increase the contract in amount not to exceed $4,501.25 for a total amount not to exceed $229,848.95, and to extend the project completion date to August 6, 2021, authorizing the city manager to execute said change order number 1 and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estra?
Yes?
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
The next 2 items have been added to the agenda, consenting to the reappointment of Eric Wise to the Airport Advisory Board and declaring an emergency therein.
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes?
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Energy Harbor LLC to provide electric energy for select City of Springfield facilities for an amount not to exceed $4 million and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
I was wondering if staff could explain, why we're making this change and how it will benefit the city. And I think it would also be interesting for people to know what the 2 biggest uses of electricity are within the city of Springfield, at least government.
Yes, Commissioner. So this is a 4-year renewal. Our current agreement is expiring, so this is a new contract. Electric rates are very volatile, so that is why this is brought to you as an emergency. We have to sign the agreement within 5 days. This is a 6.3% increase from 4 years ago, which, based on the economy, a 6.3% at this time is a pretty good rate for us to get. I can't speak as to the 2 largest users of our electric.
Now, our 2 largest users are the treatment plants, water and wastewater. So Chris takes the prize for the top 2. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
That's the
That
end of
concludes our agenda.
Mhm.
Are there other items that come before us from commissioners? Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak to us? Please go to the microphone. There's a 3-minute limit.
My name is Harold Frost, 3043 Orange Gate Road, Springfield 03. And what I'd like to ask the commission is there something I must be missing? I've been down here and you've vacated a lot of alleys. And I often wonder, when you vacate the alleys, is that a release to the city from that some way? Because many of the vacated alleys get used the same way they were being used, sometimes worse. There's one exactly 1 block from here, been vacated twice. And it has become a hazard to vehicles, and it is in much worse using it than it was before. I just wonder, what am I missing that does or does not go on?
Yeah, so typically alley vacations or right-of-way vacations are initiated through an application process. Typically property owners that surround the right-of-way like we saw tonight. Once that right-of-way is vacated, it is no longer for public purpose, public use. It is actually split, typically right down the middle, and assigned to the according properties adjacent to that former right-of-way. And so it does relieve the city is no longer responsible for maintenance responsibilities there. We do on occasion retain easement rights in the sense that if we have water or sewer or other infrastructure of ours that we have to maintain, but as far as the alley itself is concerned, it would be no longer for public purpose.
So when it becomes a more dangerous area, what happens then?
That is specifically, it's a private property matter, and the private properties that are owned, whether they're owned jointly or two different owners or multiple owners, would need to work something out privately through the court process or through mediation or so forth.
The reason I ask, I've almost been in 2 accidents from one that's a block from here. Weren't my fault, but my God, people come flying into those alleys and they don't care. And that's why I'm wondering, how do you get that resolved? Because what was done with that alley between the 2 owners you're talking about has been terrible.
I would like to comment on that. I get some complaints on that, and when I go out and talk to the owners of those sides, they like it dangerous so people won't use it, so, sorry.
It's okay, I guess, being dangerous until somebody gets killed.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estrow?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.